I was going to crush through some of this, and then we get to the code of ethics.
What is that essay?
I usually have them 2 or 3 weeks apart. Let's look it up.
I have a question with the first lesson.
Yeah.
I'm not really familiar with D2L, and I got a 0.5 on the essay, and you told me you were putting it like as a file as you can see it.
Right, yeah, because I can't see the paper. Right. So you can either, one way is to like say you copy and paste the
You can just do it on
Google Docs.
Word. You can do it on Word, and then when you finish it, just save it as a file, and it should be in there on your documents. So you can just insert it in.
I don't have it on my computer, but I did it on my house and I saved it on my computer.
Yeah, you can do that.
So
I ended up in Word because they like hate Google Docs. I know some professors that I did it last time. They hate Google Docs.
right, a lot of times what it does is it makes you ask for permissions. So it like kind of delays the grading experience, which I'm okay with it as long as I'll hit like request access and then you guys send access back and I can see it. But yeah, that's the. How'd you get through last semester? Was that kind of a mess with D2L then? Like, right. D2L, we all learned it brand new last semester, and I still hate it. It works. I try to keep it simple. That's why most of your stuff I will give you guys is right here. So I will only give you assignments, discussions, and quizzes. Quizzes, I really just like to actually do them live while we're here to like figure out, get you guys ready for the licensure exam. And, like I usually do quizzes where it's like give you the question and then I'll give you the answer because I want you guys just to be ready for licensure exam. But most of what I do, I try to keep it simple. It's all under course activities, so assignments get turned in there. I think yours was just I couldn't access it. Like it might have been. You have like, is it okay? So it was a program, right? And so one thing you might be able to do is just like copy all that and then paste it into the box. Or it sounds like you don't have Word, and I think you guys get Word for cheap or free, don't you? Is that kind of the. So as long as you get Word, which I also had to download Word, and then that way, because until you download Word, all you have is, what is that called? Like ODT. I'm surprised it didn't open for me, but usually.
So what I did was here, file.
You downloaded it?
Yeah, I downloaded it.
Oh yeah, so a DocX should open. It's just for some reason I think it's saved as like an ODT. Like whatever. Do you know Microsoft Word?
No, I think it's for the.
It should be free through like Central State's website because they'll definitely try to sell it to you for like hundreds of dollars. That's what I hate about Word.
What's the next essay?
Right, I know they always add a page. So
they're 4 now?
Right, so it was 2 to 3. The second one's always 3 to 4. It'll start growing. It never gets bigger than like 5. It gets scary for a minute, but here's what it looks like. So here's the next one.
That was my first 2 to 3 page essay.
Oh, that's your longest you've ever written?
Yeah, which is crazy because my English teacher, we didn't do nothing last semester.
Really? Okay. So you're a social work major too?
Yeah.
So that's the one unique thing about social work is most of the reason we write a lot because you do notes. So every time you meet with a client, we're writing up notes like, let's say you went to the counseling center, met with, connected with resources, had to get them through the food pantry because they didn't have any food, did an art therapy session. So it's just teaching you how to write. This is also teaching you how to write and you're learning the code of ethics. So in social work, the reason we have so many ethics is because you get people that are in totally vulnerable positions and situations or whatever. They'll be like, Maybe they'll even be on like probation. They'll be like, dude, if you can talk to my probation officer and get me off probation, I'll give you $100 cash. We can't do that. You know what I mean? Like it sounds good in theory, but basically I'll show you where to download this. So it says to review, NASW stands for the National Association of Social Workers. Somebody said, does being live count as attendances? It does. And then next week we have our accreditation visit for social work. So I'm actually going to have you guys watch a movie again. So it's kind of like a documentary day. So yes, Erica, Fogel asked that. You do count for attendance. And then somebody else asked a question. The next paper is not due for, I feel like it's 10 days. So I made it for like, okay, there you go. So yeah, due on the 17th. I usually make it so you got until midnight. So you'll search for this National Association of Social Workers. It's a code of ethics. We write a paper comparing and contrasting our personal values with the values contained in the code. So it says you should critically evaluate your own values and thoughtfully give examples of areas of compatibility. So it's usually stuff that you feel like, oh, that makes sense. I'm not going to like let somebody give me cash to graduate them from the rehab program because that sounds sketchy. Therefore, it is sketchy, but they detail it really well in this code of ethics, and I'll show you guys that because it's usually a download. You can look up those different ethical principles, but it's teaching you how to like make an ethical decision based off ethical principles. So you would search NASW Code of Ethics. And then usually you can just download it for free. It's on their official website. This will stay with you for your entire social work career. So sometimes they update it and change it, but there's a website where you can look through the code of ethics. You can read it online. You can read it in Spanish. You can buy it. It looks like it is on just socialworkers.org. So socialworkers.org about ethics. You really just got to search code of ethics. And actually, week 5 is a PowerPoint I'm trying to get to early because we have an online class next Tuesday due to our site visit. So I want to start that whole PowerPoint is about the code of ethics. So reading the code of ethics, sometimes they'll have sites that try to sell it to you, but it should be free. This is probably a better one. NASW has all of it is right here. So primary mission is to enhance human well-being and help meet basic needs of all people. Especially empowerment, people that are vulnerable, oppressed, and living in poverty. So that's why we have ethics, because a lot of times you could find people in a vulnerable situation, and desperate people do desperate things. So it's tempting sometimes, like, yeah, give me your car and I'll get you off probation or whatever it might be. So these are the main things you could write about in your paper. So these are called the unique purpose and perspective to service, social justice, dignity and worth of the human person, importance of human relationships, integrity and competence. So those are like the main values that social workers believe in. And then we also have the purpose. It identifies core values. It summarizes ethical principles. So in your paper, you'll go through these and basically for a page, find one that you vibe with, and then find one that you may be challenged by or have a hard time doing. You can also cover some of the ethical principles in it. So one of them is service, help people in need and address social problems. Another value is social justice. We challenge social injustice. So if there's like hungry people or people without heat in their apartments, people without housing, we try to get them connected with those basic resources. And that's because of our value. We value the dignity and worth of the human person. So We believe the inherent dignity. It's almost like a spiritual thing, is why a lot of social workers get involved. We also value importance of human relationships. We value integrity, so doing what we say, saying what we'll do, like showing up, being on time, serving the people that we say that we're going to, like our caseload, not just like calling in sick, dropping them like it's hot. What other value is competence? So this is the one you guys get while you're in school right now. So you gain your competence for your social class. So you're learning what to do. How do we serve a person? What does it look like when we do serve a person? And then there are this list of 6 ethical standards. So, and they go into detail with the big bold print, but our responsibility to clients, responsibility to colleagues. So we also can't screw over colleagues or like do weird stuff with colleagues. We also have responsibilities in practice settings, ethical responsibilities as professionals. Also, responsibilities to the social work profession, and then finally, social work ethical responsibilities to the broader society. And they kind of detail what that looks like. So, like in one, is our commitment to clients. We do believe to give them self-determination. That's a big word that is easy to understand, but it looks like it's like, what the heck is that? What does self-determination mean? Anybody know? If you guys can figure.
So you have like self-confidence and self-determination to do what you gotta do.
That's a good detail of it. The biggest one in there too that you kind of covered too is that we want them to choose their own destiny. Like we aren't going to, some people say like, we guide the person to water, but we can't make them drink. So we'll like show them all the right choices, but we can't make that choice for them. We're like, you need to quit smoking crack every day. You know what I mean? And like show them different opportunities, maybe how it's affected their family's lives. Maybe it was like incarcerations and arrests. But in recovery, in alcohol and addiction recovery, we know that we can't force them to drink. We can't chain them down and be like, you can't do that anymore. We give different alternatives and options. And that's what self-determination is. Even like a lot of veterans choose to be homeless because they don't like living, having to pay bills, having to pay. I don't know if you guys have any veterans in your family, but there's different reasons. They're like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'd rather literally move to Florida and live in the woods. I camped 7 years in Afghanistan during the war. I'm used to this. And we want to be like, dude, you got to get a house. You got to get an apartment. You got to live like we do. But we can't force them. So they can choose to be homeless if they want to. It might be weird to us, but that's something that they would rather not have like bills, owe the man, do things. Now, if we do convince them to take our services, we also have to have what's called informed consent. So usually it's like they choose to come to us, we tell them what our services are, and they'll sign a contract. Like, yes, I want to show up here twice a week, meet with you, go to therapy, this, that, and the other, and meet with you. And they come to us because of our competence. So you guys will have 4 years of education and a whole year of a field, like a whole semester. It's 400 hours. And so you'll have training to become competent social workers. And that might be another value you believe in for your paper. Also, cultural competence and social diversity. So we learn about other cultures globally, all over the place. Like even I lived in Latin America for a while. I visited India. So different things that help you become culturally competent. So we understand that not everybody lives like us Americans in the first world with cheap electricity. And I'm trying to think of what do you think sets us apart from other countries? We've got like cheap gas and cheap electric, like a warm,
Cheap gas.
not cheap gas anymore. Is that maybe our current? Yeah, you're right. Once they shut down that Canadian pipeline, gas prices doubled, didn't they? That was January. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't think until they open that back up, there's like a tar sands pipeline that goes from Canada to Texas that doubled the price. And you're right. It stinks. I bought an electric car because of it. literally March of last year, I have not bought a drop of gas since March, and I put solar panels on my roof to try to get free gas because it's like, dude, it's expensive. Um, so yeah, learning about other cultures. I lived in El Salvador, Nicaragua, and then even Guatemala for a language school, and just got to see the different ways they live. Gas is even more expensive in other countries, which is weird. In Europe, it's about $9 a gallon. Shocking. I was like, it's $3 or $4 per liter, which is what blows my mind. A liter of gas is only like that much. A gallon is like that much, like a gallon of milk. So they sell it by the liter for $2.50 to $3.50 a liter. Cultural competence, conflicts of interest. This would be another one. Like, say, you're starting a nonprofit. Maybe you're working and your cousin comes in. That's more of a dual relationship, but it's a conflict of interest for me to see my cousin. So usually I'll pass my cousin on to another social worker, just because that way you can be sure that you don't have that dual relationship. Like, I'm both their cousin and their social worker. I try to just be their social worker. That's why we can't date our clients either. Like, that's further on down. It talks about sexual relationships, confidentiality. This is something we cannot like release their name or details. So these are all the things you can write about in the paper. I know it's not due for 10 days, but you could get started on it now because it is a few pages long, 3 to 4. And then
So we're like, so are we like writing about this, or are we like writing like?
correct. This is what you're right. So here it is. It says students are to review the NASW Code of Ethics. You'll write a paper comparing your own values and contrasting your. So like maybe you value that this one right here. This is a pretty easy one. Sexual relationships. That like it makes sense to me that a social worker should not have sex with their clients. You know what I mean? Like, I am a professional social worker. I get this person in a vulnerable position. You know, they might even be like my same age. They're beautiful. I want to date them, but I can't. You know what I mean? I'm their social worker. So if I really wanted to date them, I got to make sure that I'm never their social worker. You know what I mean? Like, hey, there's this new client coming in. How about you guys take them? And actually, it would probably go if they were at your same agency. And you're like, it makes sense because they're coming to you in a vulnerable position. Maybe they want to get off probation and they say, if I get into a sexual relationship with you, will you talk to my probation officer and get me off probation? You're like, yeah, that sounds great. And it's like, oh, wait, that's illegal. I can't do that. So you might write how that makes sense to you, that like you wouldn't want to be in a sexual relationship, and it details it. So under no circumstance engage in sexual activities, sexual contact with current clients, whether such contact is consensual or forced. So even if you guys both agree, like, hey, yeah, we're going to date. Like, yeah, I like you. I want to date, but you're my social worker. I can't. It says social workers should not engage in sexual activities or sexual contact with clients' relatives or other individuals with whom clients maintain a close personal relationship when there's risk of exploitation or potential harm to the client. Sexual activity or sexual contact with clients' relatives or other individuals whom the clients maintain a personal relationship. So maybe it's even like the mom, and then they have a teenager come in, and they're like, if you can help my son get off of probation, I'll do this. It's clearly illegal. You know what I mean? It's like pandering or even whatever terms they use. Should not provide. What's that? There's been situations where I feel like there has been, say, a client that may be making attempts at coming on to me, but I never engage. So yeah, I would say like it's all anything's possible, and that's why we have these. And you may catch yourself in a weak spot, and you're like, "Dang, they're beautiful," and it's like, "No, dude, like you're a social worker." Like you know, it's in a lot of not just social work. A lot of places have a policy like no commingling of, you know, because for whatever reason, I'm trying to think of examples, but like they don't want you to date somebody at work because then maybe your work starts going downhill. Then you guys are at work 40 hours a week and not doing work, doing something else. So there's like different reasons they have that. This is one a lot of people actually write that they don't agree with because they're like, when I counsel somebody, I want to give them a hug if they're crying, but they're like physical contact. And as a man, it's even more strong and important, like that you have like a glass window, have the door cracked, your supervisor, that you don't even, it's easy to accuse anybody of anything behind closed doors. So physical contact. Social workers should not engage in physical contact with clients when there's a possibility of psychological harm to the client as a result of the contact, such as cradling or caressing the client. Social workers who engage in appropriate physical contact with clients are responsible for setting clear, appropriate, culturally sensitive boundaries that govern such physical contact. So some people are like, if I'm counseling somebody, I would want to give them a hug. I don't know if they should have that in there. This is one a lot of people, again, agree with. Like, yeah, it makes sense. You shouldn't sexually harass your clients. Derogatory language. It says social workers should not use derogatory language. Some people are like, well, that's how I connect. Like, I work with gangs, and it's helpful for me to talk their slang or code or whatever it might be. But here it says should not use derogatory language in their written or verbal communications to or about clients. So you can't call them something. Oh, you guys get good news. Our class actually ends in 11 minutes because they have a meeting for us today. And then, of course, next week is totally virtual. I'm going to have you guys watch this documentary on trauma called Paper Tigers. Here's payment for services. Some social workers may disagree. Like, I could pay you with my chicken eggs. Like, I've got 4 chickens that lay eggs every 26 hours. I can pay you in that. Some people will be like, no, I think it should only be American US currency. But it talks about like setting fees, bartering. That's okay. So it goes on and on. We're only halfway through there, but there's so many things you can talk about in the paper. You could just address one of these on each page. One that you agree with, one you disagree with, and maybe one that you're on the fence about. And that's your 3 pages. And then,
I just feel like like we were gonna write it. It feels like we're just listening stuff. Are we just listening stuff, or are we talking about like?
we do want your opinion though.
Right, yeah.
Right. So you would list these and you would quote like NASW Code of Ethics. You know what I mean? Or like the website 2022. And then you're like, I don't agree with the physical contact because I do think it's important to hug people when they're crying. Or
Like, do you want us to go in depth with like some of these like are you talking about like 3 to 4 sentences with the topic that we have picked?
yes, that would be helpful, like giving your own opinion. A lot of people will like list what the value is and then they write about like, here's the value I agree with, here's why I agree with it, and here's why it might be troublesome to have counseling of my cousin. Like, then I got to go to Thanksgiving with them and sit at the table and like I didn't get them off probation or something. Better that I give them to another social worker and they can then complain about that other social worker at the Thanksgiving table with me. And then these show you the reason ethics are never black and white. There's always this gray area and it's hard to decide. So these are examples of different decision-making ethical principles. One is called, and you can search these, Lowenberg and Dolgoff's ethical principles, Reamer social work values hierarchy, or any other decision-making model. And what it will do is it shows you how you make like ethical decisions. Like I'm about to get a client offer me an extra $100 cash to discharge them this week. What's the benefit? My family's hungry. I got to feed them. My job doesn't pay as much as I want. So, they got the $100. They're offering it to me. Here's the bad side of it. I can't take that $100. It's in our code of ethics. It would be a conflict of interest. Maybe I'd be compromising my belief, like say that they graduated even though they didn't finish all of the rehab and all of it was just for $100. So that's kind of breaks down your decision-making model. And it can be covered in a few pages, which again, you still want your title page up top. So that would be a 4th page. And then your references at the bottom is the 5th page. And that's APA, which I used to have it written up there. So it's 3 pages of the actual content. Chapter 5 is all, which we're going to crush into this on Thursday because next week of the site visit and the digital class, but it's all values and ethics and kind of how they go about them. I know it's not week 5 yet, so I'm not going to get into them, but this PowerPoint is helpful with the different ethics. We're actually on week 4, so we're in the social service delivery system. Isn't that insane? Because it was the 17th is the first week, the 24th was the second week, the 31st was the third week, and what's the date today? 8th. So I guess the 7th is the 4th week, and Valentine's Day will be our 5th week. And when is spring break? Because are you guys in any of them classes that end in 8 weeks? You believe it?
No, I didn't know any classes.
Social work doesn't have any, but there's a ton in sociology, even like. Oh yeah, so it's only March, and you end on April 30. It's only 8 weeks. Mm-hmm. They're good because if you like mess up or withdraw from something you hate, you can add another class real quick starting in March. That's why they're good. So you don't like screw up your graduation timeline, so to speak. Any questions about that? I'll cruise into the social service delivery system, but basically it's showing like our tax dollars fund a lot of social work positions, Medicaid dollars. Ever since the Affordable Care Act was passed, a lot of our positions are funded by different public social services. There are some social services, a few organization types. Yeah, somebody said gas is like $3. I think it's $3.33 down in Cincinnati.
Yeah, Columbus is like 330 and 325.
I don't know. Besides like that sustainable solution from the video we watched last week about like urban farming and intentionality and stuff, and maybe some solar panels to get some free electric, but even that takes forever to charge my car. I think on the best summer day, I would get 17 kilowatts, which would get my car about 45 miles for free. That's the hottest summer day with the sun blazing all day. In the winter, I get more like 5 kilowatts, which would get my car like 5 miles. I don't know, 10 miles. So I try to find free electricity wherever I can. One of the charger cars gives you a card and they start you off with $250. So you can go charge at those Walmart stations. So I'm trying to find more of those where they start you off for free and try to get you hooked on their system. So yes, this week is kind of the different places you guys could work for, like Alliance for Children and Families, American Public Human Service Organization, Child Welfare League of America. This is who's visiting us next week. So this is why we don't have class in person on Tuesday. It's called the Council on Social Work Education. If they reaccredit us, you guys qualify for that 1-year master's degree. You cut out a whole year of graduate school. You basically are doing your senior year, you're doing your first half of grad school. You do 400-hour placement and like some of the practice classes. As long as we stay accredited, those 30 hours you do your senior year count for 30 hours towards your master's. So you only have to do 35 to get a master's in 1 year from like June until May of right after you graduate. You can like knock it out. So there's other social service settings. A lot of our funding comes from different places, but regardless of the setting, you're going to have these values and ethics. So this is what your next paper is about. You can find that in D2L. I do try to keep it simple with D2L. You only find stuff that you have to turn in under assignments and discussions, which is right here, course activity. So you do assignments, discussion, quizzes. I usually do that by just giving you guys the question and then giving you the answer. If you want me to put quizzes in there, I can. Most people are like, I'll do it when I graduate. I take the licensure quiz or test, And that's when I want to take it. But I always want you guys like prepared for those multiple choice questions, which you're getting in these PowerPoints. So she said, is that only for social work? Aspect TI. I'm going to try to answer it without knowing the context. I think every profession has a code of ethics. So you can't have a dual relationship. Doctors and lawyers, though, they say no sexual relationships for like 5 or 10 years. I remember when I was being trained in social work, it was for life. And that's because as a social worker, people come to you in a vulnerable position. And so you've helped their psychological well-being, whereas an attorney might just be helping them like settle an accident that they got into in a car and their back's hurt and they get 10 grand. So they're okay 10 years later. If you want to date your client in 10 years, that's okay. In social work, we kind of have that for, oh, okay, the one-year master's program. Thank you. Yes, it is only in social work. I wish it was in psychology because I had a psych major. I double majored. So I was psych and theology. I tell a lot of folks, if you are a psych major, you still can double in social work because a lot of the classes are the same. It probably wouldn't even add extra time onto your graduation date. So any questions? Because they have me logging onto this meeting in 30 seconds. I gotta get you guys another weird sign-in sheet, unless if somebody has a normal piece of paper. Do you? Okay. Well, good to see you guys. We'll crush on the Values and Ethics Thursday, and I'll put up the link for the video, our online class next Tuesday. So no class in person next week. We have the accreditation visitors coming in to ask us a bunch of questions. We do, yeah. I try to do in person as frequent as I can and film it so you guys can watch it from here if you had to. So have a good middle of the week. Feel free to email and text any questions. And thank you guys.
I submitted the essay, the first one, again.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. That's perfect.
Oh, here comes Jonathan. All right, we're getting there.
That's three.
Hello. I wanted to make it by 10 and 58 seconds. It took me a while to
Come
log
some
in.
more. There you go.
Okay, I'm going to go on mute for just a second and answer the phone.
Okay.